Hi guys, Dr. Healthy again. Today I'm going to talk about the most common question I get. The most common question I get is how do I improve my diet? And this is a great question, and it's a very important question. But without the right information, most often you're going to make decisions that aren't actually benefiting your body. So I would always say you have to start by understanding food. If you don't really understand food or you don't really understand the foods that are available to you, and what's in your food, it's going to be very, very hard for you to make really good health decisions. So today I'm going to talk about two main health steps that you need to take in order to start taking better care of your health and your diet. And before I get started, I kind of want to just say that when we think about diet, I want to help make sure we avoid the idea of restriction. This is not an issue of restriction. I personally don't even believe in saying can and I won't and that type of thing. It's not about restriction, but it's definitely about change. That if you're eating candy every single day, that if you're, putting a lot of things in your body that is depleting your body of nutrients, then it probably is a good idea to change. Not restrict, but change. So, step one, what's most important here? The first thing you need to do is start reading labels. We've all heard this before. Many of us have heard this before. But the issue is how. Very few people know to read labels, but very few people know how to read labels. So the first thing you want to do, and I got a few props, and I, got a cereal that I don't eat, but I figured it'd be a good example. See this very, very long label, and right at the top, they draw your attention to calories. And I say they because this is, of course, regulated by our government. And they put calories first to draw our attention away from the real issues. Because if you see few calories, a lot of us think, oh, well, it must not be so bad. So I would tell you to avoid everything up here first and go straight to ingredients. How do you read labels? Go straight to ingredients. What is in here? What are you actually putting in your body? And I want to draw your attention to the first 2 or 3 ingredients because that's going to make up the largest proportion of the food that you're going to be eating. And this is Fruit Loops. So we see the very first ingredient is sugar. That's already a really bad sign. You don't want that. That means the largest amount of anything in this food is sugar. That is taking up the largest proportion of this cereal. It's sugar. And then you see a corn flour blend and whatever that means. And you can be assured that these ingredients are genetically modified. About 90% of the corn in this country is genetically modified. And that just means that they change the DNA of the food so that the food can better withstand pesticides and fungicides and insecticides and herbicides and all these things that we really wouldn't want to be eating, but they are making the plant strong enough to withstand it, so they can kill the weeds and the rodents that are eating the flour, but it's getting into the food and it is being transferred to us, and so we're getting some things we probably don't want to have in our diet. Unless it's organic, it's probably genetically modified. So you want to go straight to ingredients. And when you have this many ingredients, because then they have really depleted foods up here, like wheat flour, and the wheat flour is, again, probably genetically modified. And then they try to fortify it and make it look good with a bunch of added vitamins. And again, you're not really sure where those vitamins are coming from or what the source is because it's not coming from the food. So the most important thing, like I said, is go straight to the ingredients. And it becomes more and more important to understand what those ingredients are. And as we continue, I'll talk a lot more about what's good and what's bad as far as ingredients. One thing you do see is a lot of dyes. You want to avoid dyes at all costs. I mean, that's not food. And it's in a lot of our foods. And it's outlawed in a lot of countries. But they, unfortunately are willing to feed it to us here in America. You see BHT, and that's a preservative that's also outlawed in a lot of countries. So again, just kind of want to avoid those types of things. Here I'm going to switch my example to get to, just a shorter label. And this again is not something I consume, but I thought it would be a good example of what not to do essentially. Again, the ingredients, I don't know if you can see this, but the first ingredient is water. The second ingredient is high fructose corn syrup. So again, you're getting quite a bit of sugar. The third ingredient is caramel color. Not sure what that means because that doesn't really even say anything. But It's probably a chemical way to make the soda look this way. But if you draw your attention to the calories, which of course that's where they want to take you into the total fat, there's no fat. But if you pay attention to sugar, there's 39 grams of sugar for one serving, which is only a third of this container. So if you drink the whole container, you're getting about 117 grams of sugar, and that is many more times than the recommended intake of sugar. So just being really aware. And again, first thing you want to do is look at ingredients. Calories not that much. One other thing I want to point out is that next to the sugar, there is no daily value intake. Again, this is by design, that they don't want to point your attention to the simple fact that you are getting many more times than the daily recommended values. So they don't even tell you what the recommended values are, because a lot of times that number would look like 200 times, 300 times, and that type of thing. So they don't want you paying attention to that. So now we know step 1, read labels and read them a certain way. Hope that helped. Step 2 is you have to reduce your chemical intake. As a professor, I deal with a lot of young people, and it always surprises me how many young 18, 19, 20-year-olds are on heavy medications, sick all the time, don't really know what's going on in their bodies. And this is why it's very, very important for you to reduce the amount of chemicals that you're eating. And they're in a lot of our foods. So again, just want to remind you, it's not about restriction. It's not about you can't do this and you can't do that, but it's about changing. You kind of got to change from, there's a plethora of food out there, and you have to go from a plethora of low quality foods to the plethora of high quality foods. People are often pretty surprised when they come to my house and, I cook a meal and they eat. Because when they hear I eat all organic, or, I don't drink sodas, or I don't eat candy, people assume that I just, I eat salad all day and that's it. I don't eat, anything else. It's just, oh, well, she's just eating veggies all day and that's it. But when they come to my house, they have macaroni and cheese, they have barbecue wings, and brownies and desserts and whatever they like. I mean, they are surprised. They're like, well, wow, how are you able to eat, this way? And it's about there not being any chemicals. So instead of for my macaroni using this super bleached white pasta for my macaroni, I just use whole grain, 100% whole grain, organic pasta that costs just about the same. So it's just reducing the amount of chemicals that I'm getting in my body and just putting higher quality foods in my body so that my body can better operate. Just need to decrease the amount of white sugars and white flours and foods that just aren't bringing in nutrition to your body. And that's the most important thing. So this is going to be a slow process. Nobody wakes up in the morning and do everything perfectly. But the more knowledge you have, the more power you have, and the more control you have over your own health. And so those are the key things I want to talk about. Step 1, like I said, read labels. Step 2, reduce your chemical intake. When you know what to look for, you know how to avoid it. So one key thing I want to make sure you remember as far as chemicals is if you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't eat it. In a lot of things, you see methylisothiazolinone. And that's a fairly dangerous preservative, but it's in a lot of things. Very few people can pronounce it. And so, so if it's not simple, if it doesn't say apple, if it doesn't say wheat, if it doesn't say something like that, you just kind of want to avoid it. Just something that sounds like food. And like I said, as we go forward, I'll hopefully give you more information. Hope this has been helpful, and I will talk to you soon.